It needs to be addressed. So what? Well, my big personal thing is about process. We all come to this with different perspectives. My big thing is about process. I truly believe that if, as a community, this had been approached differently, we may not be sitting in this room tonight. We may be having very different conversations. But to have something like this pushed on us, rushed through, and to have our concerns just discounted, it's beyond disrespectful to the community. It's actually illegal and dangerous. I live on Elm Street. I'm very concerned about the noise factor. And there are costs to this. There's hidden costs to communities and to consumers, as we're starting to see. You're looking at your electricity bill, we're going to see that start to go up. There's massive financial incentives and artificial economics for companies who make about $1 million daily they'll make on this plant up here. They're going to kick our way maybe $100,000 a year or something, okay? So we're not getting anything special out of this, you know? Maybe some posters for the Boys and Girls Club, I mean, seriously. Maybe a class. The incentive to the communities are minimal. We're going to be talking about alternate technologies. After myself, we have somebody who is going to be talking from remotely, hopefully, and then we're going to have Eve talking about the danger. We also have concerns about the environment. There's lots of environmentalists in Socrates. I feel almost like we're in a tautology. I never would imagine that I'd be in a situation where I'm like against environmentalists, because who isn't for the environment, right? So there's environmental issues, there's an aquifer, there's wetlands, there's contiguous habitats, including endangered species and migratory birds. Battery storage systems do not produce energy. They store electricity generated elsewhere and return less than they take in. They're net consumers of electricity, not generators. Okay, so this is my pet issue. My pet issue is noise. I'm on Elm Street. You know, I'm here for 20 years. The peace is why I'm here and why I'm still here. And unfortunately, when I raised the noise issue to somebody who's very knowledgeable, they were like, that's the least of your issues. You know, everybody's self-motivated or self-interested. But they dismissed it as a relatively small concern relative to the danger, which is what other people are going to be talking about. From a noise perspective, projections based on what was included in the packet, because it was very vague and it was non-specific, but based on what was included and the elevated location and the low frequency which travels further, we're looking at 70 decibels at the fence line, 50 at the nearest houses, and 40 well within and throughout Socrates Village. So we're going to be looking at a constant humming that's going to be pervasive for a big part of our community and insufferable for people who live closer. It's not masked by the throughway noise, other than rush hour traffic, or by the railroad, which is intermittent. Noise will be running 24/7, the noise coming from the HVAC cooling units, inverters, and transformers. The town of Socrates has no noise ordinance. There are no plans from the applicant to install any sound berms to control the noise. There's no acoustic modeling referenced in the application. There's no post-construction sound testing in the application. There's no nighttime noise cap. There's deforestation that will remove noise buffers, and then when you take that in combination with the solar farm where there's going to be deforestation too, this is going to have a huge impact in and of itself, even without the mechanical noise. And there is noise that comes from solar farms too. Maybe not from the solar panels, but from the associated equipment. And then we also have nighttime inversion conditions. Experience from other New York communities, including Western New York, demonstrates that battery energy storage systems can generate persistent tonal and low-frequency noises, resulting in repeated resident complaints, including sleep disturbance and reduced quality of life, even where I can't read that right now. Even when technically compliant. Deficiencies in the process, this is where the real problem is, and I call this infosuasion. And those of you who have been to some of these presentations, I think you know what I mean. The application itself was 600 pages. You know, we had the planning board, the planning attorney was, oh my God, it's 600 pages. 200 pages of that were duplicates. So they padded the application. of those pages, most of it was just boilerplate, had nothing to do with our community, had nothing to do with this specific installation. We're getting incremental submissions in order to lock in those vested rights, which I mentioned earlier, and get approvals contingent on future submissions. So what they want to do is say, oh, well, we're going to approve this, but then you have to go and do this. So as soon as they get to that point, this becomes a viable, marketable contract that could be potentially sold on to other applicants. That's one thing. And it also locks the town in to not be able to back out without the potential of litigation. So it's creating pressure to our planning board to approve, and a blank slate for the developers. Approve first, study later. There's conflicting acreage disturbance numbers to avoid the type 1 classification in the packet. However, the acreage disturbance in and of itself is not the only determinant of a type 1 classification. Maybe that's how, people in the town have been used to be doing it before, but that is not the only determinant. What is missing is a site-specific emergency response plan. We have no idea if we can actually support this kind of facility. Anybody who's telling you no problem here, they obviously have not read this packet, because they would know there is no information in this packet that supports this in our community. So including the thermal runaway, which, is, I want to point out a lot of the language that is being used to minimize the concerns that the community should rightfully have. A thermal runaway event is an explosion. It's not something that's nicer than an explosion, it's an explosion. There's no stormwater pollution protection plan, no noise modeling, the aquifer and groundwater risks are not evaluated. We've been dealing with expedited timelines, stealth introduction to the Socrates community, including the timing and the lack of true community outreach for engagement. The number of containers has been minimized in key capture handouts. People have said they went to 2 meetings, the key capture one and the one at the town board meeting, and they still got the impression it was just going to be 10 containers. That's not a mistake. That's to minimize the reaction of the community to such a huge, massive industrial scale project. We have a roving band of consultants with self-interest, including money, who are going up and down the state, making a name for themselves, teaching other people how to dress it up and minimize true engagement with their own communities, and I think it's disgusting. The initial zoning determination, there's a challenge into the initial zoning determination to say, oh, no problem, one person was sitting in the room and like, oh yeah, that matches fine, we'll go ahead, and nobody knew about it is beyond belief. This kind of technology did not even exist when the zoning was written, and the application should not have been accepted prior to rezoning. The planning consultants have failed to act on the fact that of the illegal segmentation of the solar panel project and the BESS project. The full impact on our community is not being assessed. Premature and incorrect secret classification, that secret classification shouldn't have even been made yet until the information in the application packet was fully reviewed, which clearly it wasn't, because otherwise they'd be like, wait a minute, 200 duplicate pages and nothing about Socrates hardly. So it should not be unclassified. CEQA also requires that a community, a town planning board, and a town board takes what's called a hard look. The Socrates Town Board is pushing town institutions, committees, and boards for informal support without having the needed information or considering alternatives. Also illegal. There is a lack of transparency. It's very, very hard to get information about this project. Nobody wants to be a foil and a freedom of information expert. I certainly don't, but getting information is next to impossible. There's also a potential violation of open meeting laws that's happening right now, where there's being meetings held and the community of not being able to be engaged and not being able to be informed. And it's not something that the community has to wait until public hearings to be in. That's how we've always done it. that doesn't make it okay. That's not the way it's supposed to be. As a community, in general, even this project aside, we need to be informed and we need to be able to engage with our town administration. That's what they're there for. That's what we pay them for. CEQA makes sure agencies take a hard look at environmental impacts, consider alternatives, provide opportunities for public input. When I asked the town planning attorney, oh, can we give input prior to the public hearing, I was told no. That is incorrect. By law, we can give input now, and that's what I would urge everybody to do. And the CEQA also makes sure agencies make decisions that avoid or minimize harm. What next? Industrial and residential rezoning is needed, and this is needed for responsible, comprehensive municipal planning. Ensure these future uses are incorporated into responsible zoning policy, including Bitcoin mining and data centers. Rezoning should come first before any approvals, including the current applicant who does not yet have those vested rights. The Socrates Planning Board should formally deem the application as an incomplete application and not proceed with any decisions. Should formally determine insufficient information for a CEQA review, and should formally have a formal resolution to adjourn the application. Finally, for my part, what are other communities doing? Other communities have extensions and bans. Communities are pausing projects, revising their code, or banning BESS while safety questions remain. New York leads the US with 97 active BESS moratoriums. 37 of 62 counties have at least one. Fire departments are raising concerns. Towns are pushing back. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but obviously we've all heard about the Warwick situation where they had a battery fire and then months later it self-ignited again. And they have a moratorium, and I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe it's being decommissioned entirely at this point. And we also have other communities who have fire service pushback, citing firefighter and first responder concerns about inextinguishable fires. Honestly, it's not even something that the fire department has anything to do, other than potentially, cool down adjacent units that aren't on fire. There is really nothing they can do, just let it burn out. All the while we have toxic gases that are being infused into our community and into our surrounding water, into our aquifer, and into our ground. And not least of all, us and our animals. We have Hope Lodge Fire Department, the fire commissioner publicly pointed to the Orange County fires while Islip kept the project under moratorium. In fact, Hope Lodge Fire Department actually commissioned a white paper from somebody who I spoke to, and he's the one who was like, yeah, sound is the least of your problems, these things are dangerous. Okay, technology. And at this point, I am going to introduce our next speaker, and you'll just have to excuse me while I just switch things over. Randolph, are you on? Okay, great. Let me just plug you back in so that you can talk. Try just testing 1, 2, 3. Say something. Oh, okay. The audio is not syncing through. Let me just see. I was worried about this. We'll try this. We're just gonna have Jared, we're just gonna have to rig this up and see if we can figure it out. Randolph, say something again.
Hello, here I am, it's Randolph here.
Can everyone hear that?
Yeah.
A little salt, yeah.
Try to figure out. All right, Randall, on to you.
And thank you very much for the invitation. If I'm trying to modulate so that I'm well heard, interrupt me anytime you don't seem to be hearing well enough. I'm joining you via audio only to maximize the bandwidth on my end, try to make sure we get good signal quality. Hope to be present with you at the next meeting. For those people who don't know me, I've been a resident and nearby for 25 years. And I'm in and out of Saugerties for a number of different reasons. On a regular basis, I consider Saugerties and Woodstock to be very, very much linked together in our part of Ulster County and our part of the Mid-Hudson region. For my own part, I've been involved in sustainable enterprises in the 1970s, including sustainable agriculture, the development of health food ingredients and dietary supplements, other things, but also a pervasive interest in renewable energy, going all the way back to the very beginning of that era. That is, say, 50 years.
Was it?
Can you tell them
Yeah,
to pause
better
before
with
it's
the
coming
microphone.
out?
Pause.
Over here,
Sorry.
no,
I was just worried about.
Is that-
feedback.
Is that better? All right, go ahead.
Well, I want to make it very clear.
Hold on, Randall. Hold on a sec.
I think it would have been better, I'm not sure, it might have been better if you joined the Teams meeting and then just not put yourself on video so that you could have done the audio only. It is an option. We're having a problem like getting decent sound to the room.
I'm watching your video, I'm not broadcasting video.
We're having a problem getting decent audio. Try again, keep going.
Sound
we got-
check, sound check.
Yeah, it's not picking up anything from the
When you help
computer.
I mean, if you don't, yeah, just hold on to let them talk.
Alright.
I mean, you can sit.
But is this even work, is this even?
Yes.
Alright, go ahead.
I can speak up even more loudly if you'll just correct me if it's all right.
That's better, yeah.
All right, well, I'll speak very, very loudly and keep me apprised of whether the signal is reaching those parties, those people attending.
It is now, yes.
It's not a criticism pointed at Saugerties alone. Equally irresponsible of NYSERDA is any example of 4-hour lithium-based battery storage, particularly standalone battery storage. This is a technology which is already obsolete 3 years ago. NYSERDA is irresponsibly trying to force an investment on communities which will turn out to be a burden for 20 years or more. And it is particularly irresponsible because NYSERDA knew better when they issued the procurement proceedings for these bids from these parties only last summer. It's already been said, and accurately so, that a number of